Okay, so what is this? This is my farewell video for my 2009 Pontiac GXP. I'm the second owner. I found it, I've had it for about 12 years. And when I was looking for a new car, I knew I wanted rear drive. I knew I wanted 4 doors. I knew I did not want European to deal with the maintenance issues. And this car, I've never heard of it before, but it popped up. And it's been a workhorse. It's got, let's see, at this point it has 100, I want to say 140, but I'll put a text overlay to say exactly how many miles, 155,000 miles. Very little maintenance issues. I mean, you got to change the tires when it comes time. You got to change the brake pads when it comes time. I did have one big maintenance expense, which is expected. So my mechanic, he said the engine's going to last forever, but the transmission probably would start to get, well, he said it'd start to go at around 100, and he was right. And at 120, I lost the rear differential. And so at that point, I had to spend about $10,000 to rebuild the transmission and replace the rear differential. But great car. It came in 3 variants. A V6 model. Most the G8s that you see, the rare G8s that you see out there, are the V8 model, the GT. And this is the top of the line GXP model, which gives you upgraded wheels, suspension, Brembo brakes, 6.2 liter V8 going, I think it's 402 horsepower. And you don't have to deal with the cylinder deactivation, which they had on the V8 model, or the GT model. Great car, and it's mostly sorted. There's a few cosmetic issues I'll point out when I do a walk around, but you know, we have 5 cars, our family right now, and my wife is saying I can't have 5 cars, or we can't have 5 cars, and she's right. So this one has to go, and then I also have a Golf R that has to go. One interesting thing, so my replacement is a Chevrolet SS, which is basically the same car, which by the way is an Australian Holden, which is a GM affiliate or subsidiary, made in Australia, and it was brought over here and rebadged Pontiac. And then when Pontiac, you know, financial crisis, Pontiac went away, and then Chevrolet, the SS is the updated model, and they really don't make cars like this. Naturally aspirated V8 engine, rear drive. It's a simple setup, and it's a great setup. I wish they still made it. Let's see what else. 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Oh yeah, so they did, when I was searching, they also, at the time, there was a Chrysler 300 Dodge Charger, or the LX platform. But this one, if you look at the reviews that came out when it came out, like 2008, 2009, the performance of this is significantly better than that with the suspension setup and everything. They sometimes compared it to what the E39 M5 actually had, which was like the last analog BMW that was out there. What else? Oh, I picked up in Oklahoma. I think I already mentioned that. I was driving this for about, I don't know, 20 minutes on the highway. I was in number 2. I was going probably about 65 miles per hour because it was a brand new car for me. And out of nowhere, a Porsche GT3, probably, it was definitely a Porsche 911 variant, zipped by me, probably going about 90 miles per hour, slowed down, wrapped around me, and then he took off. He wanted to play. And so if you have this car, you just need to be aware that there will be some of that going on. The park ranger up here said nice Pontiac. The people that know it know what it can do. Oh, and one last thing. Actually, this is a big deal because my new car, I was driving it for 2 hours and I got a speeding ticket. But this one I went 12 years without ever getting a speeding ticket. So there's 3 layers. There is a built-in radar detector. There is a LiDAR system, which helps with the laser. Don't want to talk too much about it because it's sort of an illegal gray area. But then also it has a Waze setup as well. So I'll go through all that in just a bit. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Okay, so walk around. I'll try to point out all the flaws. I mean, it's in pretty good shape, but so if you look here, there really aren't. I don't know how I got away with no dents. There are quite a few of these though. Now you don't see it quite as much when it's not dirty, but you can see there's chips. It was starting to lose the clear coat a few years ago, so I did have it repainted, same color. I wish I did like a clear bra system or a clear bra cover on the front. And it comes up here, comes up here. This, I think that's just, I did sort of polish it, so that's nothing. Okay, here we go. A little dent here. Little one here. The wheels are in pretty good shape. And this does come with a full-size spare. The tires are relatively new, within the last year. A little bit of loops there. Let's see if I can open the trunk. So, nice spacious trunk. Under here, you will find full-size spare. Another story, when I was driving back from Oklahoma, it was like 2 a.m. in the middle of nowhere, a little bit seedy, and this wouldn't open. It's opening now because it's unlocked, but if the doors are unlocked to the car, it's not going to unlock. One thing I didn't realize until now is that's important, because otherwise you're going to bang up your paint. This rear wing, it did pop off, and I did put it back on. I recently needed to replace a rear windshield, so I used the same epoxy because I knew it would stay on, and it worked great, but it was pretty thick, and so I was pushing it down and it cracked. You can see the gap there. So you can't buy this piece independently, and the trunk is expensive, but actually, you know, people do wreck these on a regular basis. So if you go on eBay, you can look up for a G8 trunk, and then, so that was probably my plan. The other option is you could get an aftermarket spoiler, but I like to keep things stock. One thing you will notice is there's no badging. There was GXP badging, Pontiac badging, G8 badging, but when I had it repainted, I said, all I want is this. I prefer that look. I'll start it up because you will hear the exhaust. It sounds beautiful. Let's go look at this wheel. Right here, again, little tiny things, but I did a relatively good job of maintaining it. Here. On the interior. Well, let's first take a look at the rear. They are leather seats. I actually really like this leather. It's incredibly durable. It's not like soft. But, you know, by the way, I didn't detail the interior, so it's not perfect, but it does have this. There is a pass-through, which I've never used, but let's see, how do we look? So this is my setup. Now normally it comes without this. And actually the earliest model of this car, like 2008, it had like an Atari display. And then it was just this shelf. Now I did do a boo-boo because I was planning on doing what you saw, the tablet there, and I wanted power. So I did drill a small hole here. But with today's tablets, the battery life is so long that, you know, really it's not necessary. And then this, it is a home built thing, but I'll include it. It drops in here. You can put your cell phone here. But I actually prefer this. It's a bigger. So it has 3 layers of ticket avoidance. This is actually a big deal. So right here is the radar detector, and the display, I'll show you, is right here. When I start up the car, you'll see that. This is for the blinder system. So radar, you can detect, and you can detect well in advance. LiDAR is light, and you can't detect it until it's already targeting you, but there's no FCC rules as far as, what you can do, whether you can shine lights in certain directions. And so this basically shines lights back at the officer, and as the name implies, it blinds the system, so it can't necessarily read you. There is an on-off button, but it has GPS built in, and because of the GPS, you don't get as many false alarms as you would think. If I'm driving in my neighborhood, it basically almost never goes off. I did replace the speakers actually fairly recently, and it made a huge difference. Sorry, there was a car that almost crashed. Cosmetic, this right here, that was just me I did glue that back. I did look at the parts. I've never really had a huge problem. Like, I can get that part, but it's not going to be exactly the same. It would actually be where I would need to paint it and sort of fix it off. And then if I do that one, then I might need to do this one. And so in this case, I just, I glued it back. So there is one other thing. It does have, oops, okay, well, let's do that in a sec. I'll show first the sound.
Defense mode activated.
Okay, that defense mode activated, that is the blinder system. And you can see the radar system right here coming up. It's more visible in person, and actually there's alerts that go off. I'm probably going to do a separate video on all these things, how they work together, because they really are, I do miss it significantly in my new car. And then here, and this is an Android system. I'll explain why in a sec. You also can use an iPad. Actually, I used an iPad for years, an iPad mini. But Waze, it goes up and then it can give you a little bit of warning. Now, it is handicapped quite a bit, and I didn't realize how handicapped it was until this HD Radar app, which is Android only. But this will give you notification all the way out to 3 miles. You actually can set it up so it would give you even more. And the other thing that's kind of neat is it heat maps. So like there's this area right locally where a lot of people get tickets. Basically right here they make a left turn or a right turn where they're not allowed to. But it just lets you know that you need to be a little bit more careful in that location. And in the video that I'm working on, you'll see this will go off well in advance, like 3-4 minutes before you actually get to where the officer is. Then the radar system starts going off. Ka band is what they use in California almost exclusively. And then Waze will let you know basically when you're on top of the officer, where it's basically too late. So anyways. Oh, and then also, so this radio has an aux input on the front right here, as well as one in the back. And the back is plugged into this little Bluetooth thing. So now I can't play normal music because it probably would get a, copyright strike. So I'm just gonna play some random royalty-free stuff that I found online. So there is a subwoofer in the back that's stock. It's not bad, especially with the speaker upgrade. So anyways, what else? There is some hidden little quirks, and actually there's a bulletin board that helps you learn about the card. I'll post the link up in the description. Maybe I'll also put it on the screen. But things like figuring out that there is a rear aux, that you can find out information on that. finding out what speakers actually work in the doors. You can find out that information. And then also some hidden features, such as over here, there's the instrument panel lighting. And, you know, at night you can make it brighter, you can make it darker. And then actually, if you hold these buttons down for a couple seconds, it will turn off all the lights in the car, except for the speedometer and the tech. And I think this middle section as well. And just, I mean, you know, this would also be on as, you imagine that's not there. It's kind of cool if you're driving at night by yourself down a highway and just have all the lights go off. Oh, shifting. Okay, so it does have a nice, I missed this. This is a nice manual thing. So it is automatic, 6-speed. Go down to drive, you drive around. Now, there is a sports mode. You shift down like this. So if you're on the highway and let's say you're in 5th gear, if you shift down here, it's automatically going to go to 4th gear, which is nice because, you know, and then you also, and it's still running in automatic at this point, but you also can shift manually. And if you look up here, like now, you might see in the lower portion it says M1 and then M2 and then M3 and then M4. Actually, it won't go up to shift denied. The 1st gear is extremely short. I mean, basically, if you want to do burnouts, you know, M1 is very useful. When I first picked up this card, I was actually having an issue with the 1st gear, and I was thinking about, you know, just reprogramming it to lock it out, just have it go to 2nd gear, because you get these lurches sometimes until you get used to it. Now, one interesting thing, okay, back to drive, it goes 1 through 6. Now I'm in sport mode. The shift points are almost identical. They might actually be identical, which is kind of annoying. Now, I did have an HD tuner when the transmission started to get funny, and I was starting to play with it. And I reprogrammed it, so if you went into the sport mode, then it actually, the shift points would be different. You could do that. But when I got the new transmission, I didn't want to mess with things, and so I've just basically left it stock. Drive, sport, and then it does have rev matching, so when you shift gears like this, it does match the you know, what it should be. All the controls here, as opposed to the door, which actually once you get used to is kind of nice. I wish others would do it. Dual zone heating, car heat warmers, which is nice. This button, every car should have a button like this, at least every sports sedan. That turns off the stability control. You want to be careful when you turn it off, but that button does exist. What else? There's no GPS in here. No GPS. It's just radio, CD. There's a 10-disc changer or 6-disc. I can't remember how many discs go in here. And then, of course, I'm usually driving like this, with this being my car-centric display. Cruise control. Oh, one other thing. There is an engineering mode. This is something, again, that you find out if you go to the board, go to park. If you hold down this button while you're started, and let's see if I can do it. Defense mode activated. There. So if you look in there, and I don't know, you can see it gives you some more information. Battery voltage. A good one to always check after you have your oil changed, and this has always been synthetic. Is to make sure that they reset the oil. There's transmission temp. Actually, that's another one just to keep an eye on every once in a while. Engine oil life, so 94%. So it was replaced relatively recently. What else? Oh, one last thing. So, sunroof. I opened it. But it's mostly sorted except for, you know, the chips in front, the spoiler in the back, that crack, and then the air dam. Now I have the air dam, and I try to install it, but when I close this, it would jam up. It is the right part, but it is a remanufactured part, and if you look closely, it's slightly different. Apparently there's a calibration steps that you need to go through. I didn't have the time. I haven't had the time. Oh, and there is a, right here. I didn't notice this until, so the paint's in pretty good shape, but if you look really closely here, you know, I don't know. It is possible. I'm gonna show you one thing. There she is. With the insulation up here. It started to fall down and I tore it out, and I wonder if the heat from here is going in there. Maybe not, I don't know. But stock. The battery's in the trunk, so you get a positive terminal, and I usually use this for the negative, but just so you know, the battery's in the trunk. And the battery, it feels a little bit weak, but it might just because I'm not driving this, you know, sometimes it's sitting for 2 weeks. But just be aware of that. This is part of the blinder system. I do have replacements for these. They were like a couple $100 each, but I said, you know what, I want to be able to revert it back to stock. I'm not super thrilled with the way these are installed. They have to be pointed exactly right. I mean, I like the way they look, but it's sort of a bit of a Mickey Mouse job back there. There's a gap here. But overall, you know, 150,000 miles, how many miles was it? I'm gonna miss her. Okay, let me do one more thing just for fun with the exhaust. Remote start.